And no nation performs alone. That is why partnerships matter. Working alongside the institutions, enterprises, and policymakers shaping Ghana's digital future. Technology cannot be delivered responsibly without people who care. Care about your business, care about your customers, care about Ghana, care about Africa, care about people. And that is our mandate at Dynamic Data Solutions Limited, delivering secure, scalable, end-to-end technology solutions that keep businesses connected, protected, and ready for what is next. Dynamic Data Solutions Limited, technology that delivers, people who care. A nation moves forward when enterprises can. Technology as we know it has evolved and it keeps evolving right now, this very moment. Digital transformation does not happen in isolation because technology only matters when it reaches people. From the trader at Kanishi Market accepting digital payments, to the young woman discovering her future in technology, to the institutions shaping how Ghana grows, connects, and competes. This is national responsibility, and no nation transforms alone. That is why partnerships matter. Working alongside the institutions, enterprises, and policymakers shaping Ghana's digital future. Technology cannot be delivered responsibly without people who care. Care about your business, care about your customers, care about Ghana, care about Africa, care about people. And that is our mandate at Dynamic Data Solutions Limited, delivering secure, scalable, end-to-end technology solutions that keep businesses connected, protected, and ready for what is next. Dynamic Data Solutions Limited, technology that delivers, people who care. A nation moves forward when enterprises can thrive. Technology as we know it has evolved and it keeps evolving right now, this very moment. Digital transformation does not happen in isolation because technology only matters when it reaches people. From the trader at Kanishi Market accepting digital payments, to the young woman discovering her future in technology, to the institutions shaping how Ghana grows, connects, and competes. This is national responsibility, and no nation transforms alone. That is why partnerships matter. Working alongside the institutions, enterprises, and policymakers shaping Ghana's digital future. Technology cannot be delivered responsibly without people who care. Care about your business, care about your customers, care about Ghana, care about Africa, care about people. And that is our mandate at Dynamic Data Solutions Limited, delivering secure, scalable, end-to-end technology solutions that keep businesses connected, protected, and ready for what is next. Dynamic Data Solutions Limited, technology that delivers, people who care. A nation moves forward when enterprises can thrive. Technology as we know it has evolved and it keeps evolving right now, this very moment. Digital transformation does not happen in isolation because technology only matters when it reaches people. From the trader at Kanishi Market accepting digital payments, to the young woman discovering her future in technology, to the institutions shaping how Ghana grows, connects, and competes. This is national responsibility, and no nation transforms alone. That is why partnerships matter. Working alongside the institutions, enterprises, and policymakers shaping Ghana's digital future. Technology cannot be delivered responsibly without people who care. Care about your business, care about your customers, care about Ghana, care about Africa, care about people. And that is our mandate at Dynamic Data Solutions Limited, delivering secure, scalable, end-to-end technology solutions that keep businesses connected, protected, and ready for what is next. Dynamic Data Solutions Limited, technology that delivers, people who care.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of dds55 and our partners at eSentire, I would like to warmly welcome you to today's Cyber Resilience Executive Briefing, themed From Compliance Pressure to Cyber Confidence. My name is Kwame Jeche. I'm the Business Development Manager at dds55, and I will have the privilege of moderating today's session. We thank you all for taking the time to join us. We appreciate that your schedules are demanding, and we are grateful that you have chosen to spend the next hour with us. Artificial intelligence is transforming both the opportunities available to organizations and the tactics used by cyber criminals. As organizations continue to modernize and regulators continue to raise expectations, technology leaders are facing an important question. How do we build cyber resilience that keeps pace with modern threats? Throughout today's executive briefing, we will explore three important questions. How is today's threat landscape changing, and what does that mean for financial institutions? What do modern security operations need to look like if organizations are to keep pace with those threats? And lastly, how can organizations strengthen cyber resilience without simply adding more technology or expanding the already stretched security teams? Our objective today is not to talk about products, it is to explore practical approaches that help organizations move from compliance pressure to cyber confidence. This session is being recorded and a copy will be shared with all registered attendees. As this is a Microsoft Teams town hall, the microphones and cameras have been disabled. Please submit all questions through the Q&A panel. At any time, we will address as many as possible during the discussion. At DDS55, we believe technology should do more than connect organizations. It should enable confidence, the confidence to innovate, confidence to remain resilient, confidence to focus on growth. That belief is reflected in our promise: technology that delivers, people who care. Today's executive briefing is part of our commitment to helping organizations make informed cybersecurity decisions through practical thought leadership. To begin our discussion today, it is my pleasure to introduce Riyad Jawahir. As an experienced solutions consultant, Riyad possesses a unique blend of technical prowess, and sales acumen. With a distinguished background of collaborating with resellers, distributors, and end enterprises throughout the English Middle East and Africa and rest of the world. Please join me in welcoming Riyadh.
Awesome. Thanks, Kwame. Much appreciated. Good morning, everyone. Hope everyone's well. We'll just move forward across to our first slide before I kind of do the introduction. Just a small piece. Financial services firms are being breached at a 76% rate. That's the intrusion ratio of every other industry combined. That's not a typo. That is today's briefing. My name is Ria Joe here, one of the senior solution architects at eSentire. For the next few minutes, I'm going to show you exactly how attackers are getting into finance firms right now and what actually stops them. So, why are financial firms a prime target? And there are four reasons. Why finance? First reason is a direct path to capital, which compromises one account, which enables wire fraud immediately. Point two, you're not on island, as in banks, funds, advisors, auditors, regulators, they all share the same systems. So attackers just need to find the weakest link in the chain. And I say this to all customers that I engage with. Us all here today on today's call, we are all the common denominator, right? And it is very much of a numbers game. Now, where the reasons how they're able to find that weak link in the chain, it brings us on to number three, which is the high value, time sensitive deals. So whether it's M&A, especially over here, over in West Africa, mobile money and fintech integrations are expanding the attack surface faster than security teams can genuinely keep up, especially with the rise of AI now upon us. We'll look at some of these stats. Some of you may or may not have seen some of these stats before, but here is our own threat intelligence on the financial sector. This isn't data that we have scraped or compiled. This is our own threat intelligence that has been published by our own team. If you look at some of the numbers here, we've nearly 39% of incidents start with email phishing plus a valid credential reuse. Another 34% start with a drive-by malware, so click social, browser attacks. Two names to remember, most importantly, Tycoon 2FA and Radimicus Stealer. That's your number one and number two threat right now in terms of the state of play with the financial industry. And email bombing is running over the global average, specifically hitting investment banking, most importantly. On the next slide, we'll go on and we'll have a look in terms of how attackers actually get in. So what does the attack surface look like from financial institutions across the global average? Compared to a global average, only two bars really jump out. Email phishing plus credentials. So that's 39% in finance versus 26% globally. So there is quite a disproportionate drop-off between the cyber risk and the adversaries potentially available in the financial industry compared to how we're kind of looking at the rest of the attack surface globally across every other industry. The fact of the matter is financial institutions are targeted a lot harder. Click-fix drive-bys to 34% versus under 9% globally, which again is quite huge. And as I said before, us as users, regardless of what department you work in for your respective organizations, you will be a target. We will always be the common denominator as users. And it only takes one user to break the chain in the link, and that exposes your weakness, and more importantly, allows the attacker to exploit that weak vulnerability. That's 4 times the rate, which is quite high. Everyone else is getting hit by the adversary in the middle attacks, so proxy attacks, more than you are. And attackers have found that working attackers have found that what works against finance specifically, and typically the results come back to phishing and browser defects, are two of the most common ways that a lot of attackers now are finding joy in actually getting into financial institutions and their environments. On the next slide, we'll look at identity-based attacks. And if you really look at it, credentials are what we would now call the modern-day currency. If you have the credentials to log in somewhere, you effectively have the key to the kingdom. This piece here is really important. I'm going to explain to you exactly how this happens. Number one, it's a targeted phishing email, hits a finance professional. Number two, I'm sure everyone here has heard of Tycoon 2FA or have an MFA in use. Phishing as a service platform is something that attackers can now buy. This allows the attacker to intercept the login in real time. They're not waiting for 2, 3, 4 days. They're able to actually intercept in real time. The credentials and the MFA token get relayed straight to the attacker, so it will bypass your traditional defenses and most system administrators. The fourth piece here is the session cookie is also stolen. So whilst it's great to have MFA, it's already been bypassed. The fifth point here is attackers are already in your emails, they're in your systems, they're in your wire instructions, and that's 38% of your incidents. So MFA didn't stop a single one of them. Yes, it raised the bar, but MFA, as we now know, is now no longer enough with regards to that posture with regarding to that cybersecurity landscape. So moving across, we'll look at malware targeting finance professionals, and we'll go through some of the ones that are probably on the most wanted list with regards to the repeat offenders, the repeat attackers. On the malware side, there are 4 things to know. Tycoon 2FA, it's a low barrier to entry, high credential theft volume. With the Raditha Stealer, it grabs safe credentials, browser data, and even crypto wallets. So a lot of these solutions that are being used and techniques and tools that are being used by attackers can do a lot more than taking credential, looking at system data. It goes far more beyond that. You have net support managers. Again, a legitimate remote tool. This gets weaponized for persistent surveillance after a click fix infection. Not sure. I'm hoping some of you guys on the call today have seen ClickFix Social in specific social pages, and the ClickFix delivery itself fakes error dialogues, tricking your staff into running malicious scripts. That's 34% of all cases. And one thing that's really worth important to drive home is endpoint protection. Endpoint alone doesn't catch it. You need to have other metrics. You need to have other tools. You need to have a better visibility across the stack, so it allows you to stop the initial breach at the first sign, rather than when it's morphed into something far more nefarious. You're now in a reactive setting as opposed to a proactive setting. The other piece here, which we have also seen, is the rise of fake IT workers, and this is really an interesting slide, because this one surprises a lot of people. So across a lot of our threat research and our most recent briefing, our threat research unit have identified 2 separate personas interviewing for a remote developer role at a US credit union. So correspondence, interviews, they made it past the initial phone screen before we initially cut them off. This isn't a disgruntled employee problem anymore. It's a nation state actors walking in through your hiring process. And that's why I've layered the proactive security. It isn't optional anymore. It has to cover people, not just your systems. And again, as users of our own respective environments on a daily use, we also owe it to ourselves and to the organization to ensure that we are staying ahead of A, the potential threats that are out there at the moment, but B, to also make your own IT staff aware of those dangers. And if something doesn't look right, doesn't sound right, double check, pick up the phone, call that person before you decide to take action on that email. So very important now. It's your systems have to cover your workers, not just your systems to make it updated. So it has to cover. It has to be able to cover on both accesses. So a little bit with regards to eSentire, how we here are able to protect financial firms. A lot of our business is deep-rooted into financial firms, way back over in 2003. So a 20-year data lake allows us to be quite agile and quite responsive, but more importantly, to go ahead and take action on behalf of customers. So let me give you a quick rundown. Here's how we close the gap on each of these. We'll match a one-to-one credential theft with the adversary in the middle attack. The MDR identity piece that we have from eSentire catches anomalous logins and session tokens before the funds move across your organization. Click fix and drive-by malware, behavioral endpoint detection catches it even with zero signatures. 0 day is also included within that. Email bombing and multi-factor authentication fatigue allows us to give customers a multi-signal coverage, flags a campaign before the follow-up impersonation call even comes in. So again, this is very much us being proactive with regards to a potential breach, as opposed to waiting for the attack to eventually land for it to then to cause quite a substantial problem for the customer. With the email fatigue, the multi-signal coverage flags email compromise. 24/7 SOC catches the unusual mailbox rule changes before the fraud email even goes out. And of course, the one that we all try to defend against and catch, the ransomware. So machine speed containment allows us to stop lateral movement before anything is encrypted or exfiltrated. And we do this all with a human validating every step. And it's really important, the fact that we're able to prevent lateral movement. If you look at the majority of the attacks that we now see, especially in the last 6 to 9 months, they won't specifically go directly to their target device or target systems. They will use a series of machines, and then they will laterally move inside your organization. This allows us to stop that possible path of travel, allowing us to stop it at the first sign of any specific problems or nefarious activities. And then the last one here, I wanted to kind of give you guys some key takeaways. Probably 5 things to bring back to your individual teams. Number 1 will be finance sits at a 76% intrusion ratio. It's still higher in investment banking with VC and PE-backed firms. You're a priority target, not a bystander. Number 2, credentials are the new currency. 39% of attacks start with phishing. Number 3, drive-by malware. 34% means endpoint alone isn't enough anymore. Number 4, tagging 2FA and MFA in general are now industrialized. It isn't enough anymore. We need to be able to add more layers of security to be more effective. And the last piece here is eSentire builds threat-matched MDR specifically for this sector. So stopping this before it becomes a breach or a fraud loss. So those are some of the key takeaways based around what we're seeing in the wild with regard to our own threat intelligence, our research, and of course, some key takeaways regarding kind of how we work at the stack. So I'm going to pause here and hand back over to Kwame, and then we shall reconvene with our portal later on in the session.
Thank you so much, Riyad. That's very insightful. Yeah, I think one message came through very clearly, that the threat landscape is evolving faster than ever, and attackers are increasingly leveraging automation and AI to accelerate both the speed and sophistication of the attack. But understanding the threat is only one part of the equation. I believe the bigger question for many organizations is, what does this mean for the way we operate security? How do we move beyond deploying security technologies to building security operations that can continuously detect, investigate, and respond? To help us answer that question, I'm pleased to introduce Maurice Pouliard. Maurice is a solutions architect with over 30 years of experience designing resilient network and cloud solutions for enterprise organizations. His expertise spans network architecture, cloud infrastructure, systems integration, and cybersecurity. He's been helping organizations build secure, scalable environments that strengthen operational resilience and support regulatory readiness. Today, Maurice would explore how financial institutions can strengthen their security operations, bridge the gap between compliance and operational resilience, and build the capabilities needed to keep pace with modern cyber threats. Maurice, over to you.
All right. Good morning, everybody, and thank you very much, Kwame. I believe I'm audible. So to kick things off, Riyad has taken us to a very fascinating view of today's threat landscape. So this is how attackers are evolving, how AI is changing the game, and then why financial institutions continue to be prime targets. I would like to take the conversation slightly different direction when it comes to this conversation. So rather than asking what attackers are doing, I'd like to ask, how prepared are our security operations to respond? That's number one. Because regardless of how sophisticated the threats become, every organization eventually faces the same operational challenge. So this is, can we detect it quickly enough? Can we investigate it confidently? And can we respond before it becomes a business problem? That's really what I'd like to explore over the next few minutes. So nothing about compliance, not products, but what modern security operations should look like for financial institutions today. This is what I'll be looking at in the next couple of slides. So we'll start with the statement. I believe it captures the statement: compliance establishes the baseline, and then operations capability builds resilience. Those two things are related, but they are not the same. So most financial institutions represented here have been invested significantly in cybersecurity over the couple of years that they've been in existence, right? If you look on the left side, you see majority of the tools or majority of the technologies that the financial institutions represented here have invested in. So mostly these are around things like the endpoint security, firewalls, cloud security, and even SIMs. This is security incident and events. But when I speak with IT leaders, right, the question that they ask today aren't really about whether they have controls in place anymore. They're asking questions you see on this slide. These are like, are we actually seeing everything that's happening across our environment? And this is mostly the fear a lot of financial institutions have, the fear of not knowing what is going on within your environment. And then if an incident starts at 2 a.m., how quickly will you know what has happened within your network? First of all, is there visibility? Secondly, will you even know if this thing happened at 2 a.m. where majority of the people will not be awake, right? And then can we investigate it confidently? Can we contain it before it disrupts our operations? So these are the operational questions that IT leaders are asking. Right? And that's why I believe the conversation has shifted from the technology to the actual operations of the technology itself. Compliance tells us we've implemented security controls, right? But security operations tells us whether those controls are working every single day. This is probably the biggest misconception I see in cybersecurity. So if you look at the left side of the slide, every one of those items is valuable, right? So you see logs, you see alerts, you see events, and then you see telemetry. All these are valuable, and these are produced by the technologies that have been implemented across the financial institutions that are represented here. But by themselves, they are simply information. It's just information that you receive. The information does not protect an organization. What creates value is what happens on the right-hand side. So on the right-hand side, we are turning thousands of events into meaningful visibility. You are turning alerts into investigations. You are turning investigations into response. And finally, you are learning from incidents. So security continues to do what? To improve. That's why I always say technology produces data, but security operations actually produces the outcome that we are looking for. That's the operational maturity we are trying to build here. So if you look at this slide, at the top, you see the complex landscape that financial institutions are having to deal with, right? So you see that security teams of the financial institutions have hybrid infrastructure, cloud workloads, remote users, anybody logging in from maybe a coffee shop somewhere across the country, yet your headquarters is in Ghana. And then you have identity platforms, third-party connections, all these APIs, and then API security, and then the growing volumes of alerts, right? So there's more cloud, there's more identity, there's more third-party integrations, more endpoints, and then, of course, like I said, more alerts. Now, when you look at the bottom, none of the expectations have reduced. In fact, the expectations of the teams that are having to deal with this very diverse and broad landscape has actually increased. And the security teams are still expected to maintain business continuity. They are supposed to meet regulatory obligations, and then they are supposed to respond even faster with this expanding, still same size of IT team or security team, but then with a growing landscape, and they are expected to respond faster, often with exactly the same number of people, right? So that's why this isn't simply a cybersecurity challenge anymore. It's actually, like I've said again before, an operational scalability challenge. So if you agree that simply adding more tools isn't the answer, then what will be the next question? The next question will actually be, what should modern security operations actually deliver? So let's look at this, the first capability that we expect modern security operations to deliver. Number one will be continuous visibility. This isn't about having another dashboard. It's about having confidence that you are seeing what happens across your environments, not just pieces of it. So if you look at the previous slide and all the enormous landscape and the enormous environment landscape, you would agree with me that most of them have different dashboards, right? And then everything is in pieces. So every landscape or every technology that you've deployed has a different dashboard. And if there's an issue, you'd have to log into various dashboards, or you have various dashboards sending different alerts, right? And I mean, this gives you visibility, yes, but then it's because it's different dashboards, it's not consolidated. You have to be looking here and then looking there. It's not properly structured, right? So this is the first thing that we're looking at, continuous visibility. The second thing will be intelligent detection. One of the biggest challenges security teams face today isn't a lack of alerts. The alerts, they are bound, right? It's deciding which alerts actually matter. Modern security operations should help teams focus on the signals that require action, not every event that's generated. The third capability, of course, is coordinated response. So now, when we detect a threat, we know that detection alone will not reduce the risk. Organizations create resiliency when detection leads to investigation, decision-making, and timely response. And then finally, we look at continuous improvements. Now, because threats evolve every day, security operations can never remain static. So every incident should improve the way the organizations detect and respond in the future. So this is why I like the statement at the bottom of the slide that says security operations are a capability, not a collection of technologies. Technology enables the capability, but it's the operating model that creates resilience. So if that's what modern security operations should look like, the next question is, how do organizations build that capacity without continuously adding people and complexity? This is where managed detection and response, MDR, fits into the conversation. And I think it's important to position it correctly. MDR is simply not another security product. Like we said before, there are several products that have already been deployed, but MDR isn't one of them. MDR is an operational capability. What it does is it helps organizations extend the effectiveness of their security investments they have already made. If we look at these 5 areas, the first being extending visibility. Modern environments don't stop at the firewall anymore. Visibility has to extend across endpoints, identities, cloud services, and users. Now, secondly, accelerating detection. The faster an organization identifies suspicious activity, the greater the opportunity to contain it before it becomes an actual business issue. And then the third point will be reducing alert fatigue. This is one of the biggest operational challenges facing IT teams today. And the reason, of course, has been already stated. The fact that you have so many tools deployed and all these tools are generating alerts and logs and telemetry at the same time, right? Not every alert deserves the same level of attention. I believe you can agree with me on that. And mature security operations helps teams focus on what genuinely requires investigation. And ultimately, all of this contributes to faster response and stronger operational resilience. That's why I don't think MDR is another technology, right? I think of it as an extended or an extension of the capability of every organization's IT team. If you think about where regulation is moving, the emphasis is increasingly on operational capability. Look at the 5 expectations on this slide. So we have continuous monitoring, we have effective incident response, operational resilience, ongoing improvements, and then executive confidence. I'll start with the first one. Organizations should understand that what's happening across their environment, not periodically, but continuously. And this is where continuous monitoring should come in place, right? And then there's effective incident response. It's not enough to identify an incident. Organizations need to respond consistently and effectively. For operational resilience, can the organization continue operating when security incidents occur? This is the question that we need to ask. And then ongoing improvement. Every organization should become stronger after every assessment, every exercise, and every incident. And then finally, executive confidence. Boards aren't asking whether security tools have been purchased. They're asking whether the organization is resilient, which brings us back to the statements we've discussed throughout the presentation. This is compliance establishes the baseline, and then operational capability builds resilience. The dds55 approach. dds55 has simplified the journey in 4 stages. And these 4 stages we've couched it as the care, right? So this begins with consult. Before recommending any technology, we first understand the client's environment. We don't just jump in and start throwing solutions around. The first thing is to understand the customer's environment or the client's environment, the client's operational priorities, and then the security maturity. Then we go to the next stage where there's an activation or that we activate. This is about integrating the monitoring and detection into the organization's existing security ecosystem. Then the third stage is to respond. So the security operations need to function continuously. Detection should lead to investigation. Investigation should then lead to action. And then finally, there's evolution, which is evolve, the last letter, which is E. Cybersecurity isn't a destination. It's something organizations continuously strengthen as threats. It's something organizations continuously strengthen as threats, technologies, and business priorities evolve. That's what CARE represents, a practical approach to helping organizations move from the pressure that compliance is given to cyber confidence. So let me leave you guys with the final thoughts. Cyber resilience isn't determined by how many security tools you own. And you can all agree that you own quite a lot of those. It is determined by how effectively your organization can, first of all, detect, after detection, investigate, respond, and then adapt to the changing threat landscape. If there's one message I'd like you to take away from today, is this: that cyber resilience isn't measured by the size of your security budget or by the number of technologies you've deployed. It's measured by your organization's ability to detect, to investigate, and then to respond. And then finally, also to continuously adapt. Because modern threats don't wait, and modern security operations can't stand still either. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maurice. You left us with one message, and my takeaway is that cyber resilience isn't determined by how many security tools an organization owns. It is determined by how effectively those technologies work together to enable continuous visibility, timely detection, and coordinated response. We've explored why modern security operations matter through Maurice's presentation. Now let's see what they look like in practice. I would like to invite Riyad back to demonstrate how managed detection and response extends security operations by helping organizations detect, investigate, and respond to threats around the clock. Riyad, please take it from here.
Awesome. Cheers, Kwame. Maurice, superb piece there. Even I learned a couple of things, which was great. So some really good insights there. What I want to do is kind of take you through our Atlas platform, give you a brief overview. I'm conscious of the time, but I want to give you a rundown of exactly what we're able to show customers, what we can do when the inevitable does happen with regards to an attack, but also what it means for yourselves as a customer. So we're going to go through a scenario here, just kind of give you an idea of the look and flavor of the system, but more importantly, what the actions are off of the back of this. So this is our Atlas platform. This is our own proprietary platform. This isn't from an acquisition of anything. This is our based on our own data lake. So 23 going on 24 years now worth of data. And what it does, it allows us to give accurate information without the need of having all the technical jargon. So here you can see we have a set of dashboards. We've got a CISO dashboard, executive dashboards, threat dashboards. These can be built according to how the customer would like to. What I have done is I filtered out to show you what we can give you in terms of a CISO board, in terms of quick snapshot information that they can see. So in the middle here, you'll see our Threat Protect overview. This allows us to give you a full insight into the blend of the signals and the data that we're currently taking in across of your environment. It also allows us to show you how much noise we're taking out of your everyday workings. I'm pretty sure the majority of us have better things to be doing than to waiting for inboxes from different vendors and software solutions to say, can you verify this? Can you check this for a false positive? Where our data lake has been quite rich in its data and also in its actions, it allows us to trim down the majority of the noise, allowing us to work on what's currently active, specifically to the customer's environment, or what is currently being flagged in and around the environment as well. So it allows us to take these signals, understand which are purely informational based, what signals have actually been investigated, and we can break it out between any attacks, anything that's currently suspicious, any vulnerabilities, and of course to flag up benign activity as well. A bit further down on the right hand side, we can see the service coverage. So as you can see, allows us to do logging, cloud, dark web monitoring, endpoint identity, which we highlighted in the presentation. Again, one of the large surfaces at the minute for attacks. We've got nearly over 150 plus integrations that are accessible via API. And again, it allows customers to see what they're currently subscribed to and what they're not subscribed to, allows us to build that resilience for them going forward in a joint partnership. Findings, and I'll go through an example use case of a scenario where a breach has taken place. This allows us to round up across a 90-day period how many attacks we've seen, how many vulnerabilities, which were suspicious, and how many of those incidences were actually benign. The vulnerability overview is great. So it allows us to kind of show you where the vulnerabilities are across your organization, which are exploitable, and how many of them are currently critical as well. Again, this is a service, so you do get live SOC metrics. These are pertinent to each individual customer. Again, we do have a global SLA, but a lot of these SLAs here that you'll see in terms of metrics are driven on a customer by customer basis. So our mean time to investigate is just under 14 minutes. And again, a mean time to respond is just over 1 minute 28. And again, these will fluctuate. As you can imagine, customers will have different stacks, different approaches, environments are built differently, they all talk differently. So it's important for us to give metrics back to organizations and the C-level so they can see exactly how we're trending against the threat of attacks that are coming in. A little bit lower here, it's great because we have our threat advisories and briefings. This is our own threat intelligence data. This isn't a third-party feed or a third-party source. This information, including the threat advisories, are curated by our own dedicated threat response team. And what it allows us to do, it allows us to see if there are any specific CVEs matching a customer specific environment. And it also allows us to give you those threat hunt summaries. So here we can see, are there any specific threat hunts that have been taken out which affect your environment straight away? Or how many have we found across your industry? And as you can imagine, with the breadth of customers that we service, this data here can change according to where we are in the life cycle of that threat hunt. What I do want to do is take you over to an example where we can see a threat case with regards to an incident that has now been live. It has now been triggered, and this takes us into our detect piece. So what I do want to do is kind of show you what would it look and feel like from a customer's perspective if today there was a breach that came out, it rendered your organization from not working. What does it look like from an eSentire perspective, and what does it mean for you as a customer? So in findings allows us to bring up all of the cases that are currently awaiting investigation or already in the last stages of resolving. What it does do, as you can see here, some of these data I've taken and kind of refreshed. ClickFix, as I mentioned in my session, is still probably one of the most sought after attacks, purely because it's a numbers game. I think most attackers know if they can send out 100 emails to 100 users in an organization, they only need one weak link in the chain. So somebody in finance, somebody in marketing, somebody in sales perhaps, they just need one person to fail for them to gain access. Again, we have endpoint attacks, which are also coming through, credential phishing and business email compromise. Again, very, very high on the attack surface for finance firms, purely because of the way the sector kind of runs and the urgency on signing documents, moving money, ensuring it's a lot of checks that have to be done internally. So having a service like MTR that can layer underneath to verify those specific traits allows us to be far more intuitive with regards to how we can defend against those. What I want to do is I want to show you what it would look like if the attacker was to compromise an endpoint in your organization. In this case here, the customer is running CrowdStrike. This could be Microsoft, so Defender for Endpoint. This could be Sentinel-1. The service remains exactly the same. What's great is this specific attack here will be flagged to the customer in a number of ways. First is inside the web portal. The second is via the mobile app that we also have for our Atlas platform. And the third is we can have this be sent over to customer in a number of ways. So push notifications via mobile. This can be set up and spun into an email delivery queue. So, for example, support or level 1 at. So we can work with the customer to see how we could like this information surfaced to you. With regards to the detail, this is where it becomes really important, is the details with what we've being able to explain with regards to this activity that's happened on this endpoint breaks it down in very easy to read form. So what we don't do is we don't put all of the technical jargon. We have it available, but in the face of a breach, customers would like to know how, what, when, and why. And the last piece we'll cover on is the initial mitigation. So here we can see an initial attack on an endpoint. We list any and all assets that were involved in this specific attack. The evidence chain, so again, we can see the initial endpoint. So in this case here, it was credential access. And it wouldn't be a webinar if I didn't mention the word AI. So we do have AI built within our system. Very important that we use AI to augment our findings. At no point will we ever rely on AI to take action on behalf of any customer. Any decisions that we take on behalf of a customer is strictly being done by a security analyst. So physical hands on keyboard with regards to that remediation. Here it allows us to produce the chain of evidence, which is very important when it comes to informing your specific regulators, insurance companies. This allows us to catch all of the evidence that is required with regards to initiating that successful investigation. Here we can see potential response actions that the AI has flagged. And we also list all the MITRE attack techniques and tactics that we use. So here we can see credential access, and one tactic that I covered earlier on in my presentation was lateral movement. Again, this is normally done using Windows Web Management. Indicator of compromise, these are indicators and file hashes which have only ever been seen once, which means this was a specific targeted attack. This wasn't what I would call your garden attack, where we can see malware coming down the line. This was a targeted attack, which means that the indicator of compromise is quite key because there's only one key for it and only one file hash, and we have it. Also gives you a list of the investigation steps, and in the conscious of time, I'm going to go through the investigation steps ever so quickly. But what it does do, it builds out a picture. It augments all that data that we have, and allows us to really give customers an understanding of what we found, what we've done with it, and what are the initial conclusions based off of those scans. What it does allow us to do, it allows us to map the attack techniques. Again, everything here is time dated and stamped. And then we look at the response actions. So first port of call, we give customers exactly what's going on, what entities have been compromised, and where the evidence chain sits. Response actions, we can see remediation would be to force immediate expiration for parsers on the domain account. Revoke that session token, again, one that I had covered earlier on in the presentation. And last but by no means, definitely not least, probably the most important piece in this specific attack is the host isolation. So this could be an endpoint, could be a server, could be a virtual machine. It could even be blocking or removing a user from a group. Any action that we take is always implemented by a SOC analyst and not by AI. So the fact that we're able to place hosts, devices into isolation with regards to service allows us to prevent that lateral movement. This is what we would call the action with regards to our MDR service and the play, but it also means customers can reach back into the platform, and you can speak directly with the SOC in a number of ways. The first way is to directly communicate back through the Atlas platform. The second is you can also use email if it's an option that you would like. Or the third option, which most of our customers tend to use, is the ability to phone the SOC. It's quite nice as a service that you're able to speak to a human as opposed to being behind a very large ticketing wall where you're just a number in a ticketing system. This allows us to give that human touch, the human intelligence, but also allows customers to have a verbal conversation with someone else on the end of the line. as opposed to keeping it quite static across email and tickets. So there's quite a number of ways we're able to communicate with customers from within there. In the context of time, I do know Kwame, we were going to do some Q&A. So I will leave this here just for now. But if there's anyone who would like to have a deeper insight, a broader overview of how our Atlas platform works, I'll be more than happy to arrange that with the guys over at DDS to arrange some further calls at a later date. Kwame, I'll hand back to you. Hope to sort some of our Q&As.
Thank you, Riyad. We will definitely now move into the Q&A session. We thank everyone who has submitted questions. I'll begin with a few of them that have come through. So we have one over here. So we already have MFA deployed across the firm. Are you saying that's not enough?
Not familiar with it. That's exactly the assumption. Again, multi-2FA, tagging 2FA is built to break. It's not getting passwords. It's a real-time proxy that sits between your employee and the real login page. So it captures that credential, and it captures the initial credential and the MFA token. Then it steals the session cookie thereafter. So at that point, MFA has really done its job, and it's been bypassed anyway. And that's why 40% of finance incidents will start with phishing plus valid credentials, despite MFA now being table stakes for now. Yes, MFA does raise the bar, but it doesn't remove the door. And again, it goes back to having tools and solutions that are going to accommodate what you have with regards to your current environment, but also allows yourself as a customer to layer on specific protection. And of course, as we move through the cycle with regard to cybersecurity, everything has to change. Cybersecurity is changing on a weekly basis, and in some cases an hourly basis, depending on the vertical that we're discussing. So MFA is great; it raises the bar, but it's not enough.
All right, thank you, Riyad. There's a second question. How quickly can cyber threats be contained on the Atlas platform when there's a breach or there's an incident detected?
Great question. So as we went through with regards to that session just now, we've got a 15-minute mean time to contain. That allows us to be quite accurate in our findings, but also allows us to be quite agile in that response. So our main objective here is to make sure that we're way beyond the threshold before the point of entry, before lateral movement. So it makes us quite sticky with regards to the initial discovery, the problem that's currently evolving, but more importantly, the answer and the assistance in bringing that environment, that user, that server back into monitoring as across the service with the rest of the system as well.
Okay, thank you, Riyad. I think there's another one that's around Microsoft Teams. So it says they use Microsoft Teams daily for client collaboration. What specifically should they be worried about?
That's a good question. I guess much like ourselves, everyone seems to have their own internal, accessible piece that they've used, such as for Teams, Slack, and everything else. Teams has probably become one of the most underestimated attack vectors in legal, and that sits just over 6.5%. That's nearly double what the 3.5% was with the industry average. And it's a standard threat specifically for the financial sector, and there are two things that are happening. The first is the external access to Teams. Means attackers can reach your lawyers through what feels like a trusted internal channel, because let's face it, if you're dealing with a client and they're on Teams, it feels safe, but the impersonation, colleagues, IT staff, events, or even clients, and because it feels internal, that suspicion level drops. And that's the idea of the attacker, is to kind of drop your walls. The second thing that happens here is IT help desks are quite high with impersonation via Teams. It's actually the second highest threat for legal of any industry. And the attack pattern is very simple. Somebody messages a lawyer posing as IT support. That creates urgency around an account issue and either extracts credentials or gets remote access installed. I guess the practical advice would be to restrict external teams access where possible, and ensure your SOC has visibility into your team's signals, not just email and endpoint. So it's worth covering off the rest of the bases as opposed to what we use in terms of tools such as email, endpoint, identity, and so forth.
Okay, thank you, Riyad. This one is for Maurice. I think he's asking that based on his presentation, can an entity outsource their cyber to DDS, and also that is provided they don't have capable cyber personnel or resources internally.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I think that's the main point we're trying to drive home, right? Apart from the fact that we want you to understand what's going on in the cyberspace. The main point is that you can outsource. So regardless of whether you have a team or not, the main thing here, or the main point here, is that for the operations, we act as an extension of your team. That's if you have a team. If not, then we become the team that you hire to do the operations of the technologies that you've already deployed in your environment. So this is the picture I want to paint for you, right? So see it as a jigsaw puzzle, right? The technology that you have already existing in your environment, those are the pieces that you put on the table for the jigsaw. Now with those pieces, you are able to actually see what picture you will have at the end of the day. That's where we come in. We come in to put those pieces together to actually show you the picture that your security landscape is painting to you, right? So a simple answer to you is yes, DDS is positioned to handle your security needs, your cyber security needs. Yes, you can outsource it to us. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Maurice. I think we would wrap up because of time. So we'd wrap up and close. I think today's discussion has reinforced an important message. Cyber resilience isn't built through technology alone. It's built through the ability to continuously detect, investigate, respond to threats as they evolve. I'm asking that if today's session has prompted you to think differently about your organization's security operations, would welcome the opportunity to continue the conversation. As mentioned, or if it's not been mentioned, DDS is offering all attendees a complimentary cyber readiness assessment. It's an opportunity to better understand your current security posture, identify operational gaps, and explore practical steps to strengthen your cyber resilience. Our teams will be in touch over the days, and we'll share today's recording and presentation materials with all of you. I think at this point, on behalf of everyone at dds55 and eSentire, we thank you for joining us, and we wish that you have a wonderful day, and see you. Bye-bye for now.